Hi, it's Gadget UK here again. A very exciting day for me. My new friend has arrived. Amiga being the Spanish word for friend, by the way, in case you ever wondered that. It's looking amazing actually. It looks way better than it did in the photos. So yeah, the front is a little bit yellowed, but by the time we've cleaned it up, it might not be too bad. I don't know whether I'm going to even bother retrobriting that. If you remember Cather's A4000, the front was like 3 or 4 times darker yellow than this, so that's pretty good. The drive though, yeah, I might retrobrite the front of that because that is as bad as yellow as Cather's was, you know, not Cather's myself, but his machine. To be honest, it's one of these things, I think even if it was as bright as Cather's, I'm not sure I would retrobrite it. If it matched, if this was the same colour as this, here I wouldn't be bothering retrobriting that, but it kind of stands out a little bit, doesn't it? Of course, the opposite's going to happen probably. If I retrobrite that, it might go back to a beigey sort of colour, and then I'm going to be like, well, they don't match again. So I don't know, maybe I won't bother. Maybe I won't bother retrobriting it. You can see the power switch is not there, but it should be inside it, I think. So in terms of the lid here, yeah, there's lots and lots of scratches, and it's got these little, can you see these little dots? Is that just dampness or something? I don't know, maybe we can clean that off. So the plan with this is to restore the motherboard and sell the motherboard and its riser, you know, the Zorro riser there, to recover some of the costs, because this was pretty blooming expensive. In the condition it's in at the moment, battered up and board corroded, obviously not working. We might have a power supply fault. For all I know, the power supply doesn't work, the floppy drive doesn't work, and the motherboard doesn't work, I don't know. But it's got a hard disk in there as well, and the CPU card, so yeah, it's going to be lots of recapping and lots of repair to the motherboard. But if I can get those working and sell those, then I will have reduced the cost of this case, because that's what I was after: a case, a floppy drive and a power supply to go with the motherboard that I fixed previously, that was given to me by the amazing Stephen Leary, Mr. Terrible Fire. So this cost £750 in the condition it's in. Now, straight away you could be thinking I'm crazy spending that, but you know what? That's what these sell for. They sell for more than that. The last one of these, I've been looking at trying to get a case for the last, I would say, 8 months, and the 2 or 3 that have gone have been around the €800 mark. I think the last one was about 750 or 775, I think it went for, and that was just a case. I don't even think it had a power supply, and it lacked a drive. There was one there that was around the €800 mark that did have a drive and I think a power supply, or it might just be one or the other, I forget which. But in any case, try and find a high density drive for one of these. You know, they've got a slightly higher front than 3.5 inch, so you could fit a standard drive there probably and do some modifications, but there's going to be a gap at the top and the bottom, as it doesn't quite, you know, fill the gap where the fascia goes. So I would imagine if one of those came up on eBay, it's going to be £60 to £100 for a replacement drive for this probably. And the power supplies for these tend to sell between £150 to £250, and that might be faulty, or, you know, needing recapping and all the rest of it. So yeah, I think I've done all right actually. I think from what Stephen was saying, the motherboard should get no less than about 300, because that's what the cost of the chips will be. So as long as it's, you know, restored and fully functioning, nice and clean and tidy, I should be able to get the 750 down to 450-ish. You know, if it's up to 500, yeah, I can live with that. It's a lot of money. But you know, what's the alternative? The alternative is try and buy a fully working, you know, restored A4000. What's that going to set you back? £1,000 or more, probably. So the first thing I'm going to do here, before I properly remove the lid, I haven't done the screws, is just get a little bit of soapy water on here and just see how bad this is. Yeah, it's kind of pitted, look. Can you see that? So, yeah, what I might do with this, I might take this to professional respray place. I'm thinking, you know, there's a guy I know who restores cars, he does car repairs. You can see the marks and dirt and stuff off there coming off. Now, of course, we can use plastic cleaner on this, but yeah, this kind of like pitting thing on the top here, not really sure what we can do about that. I could try a little bit of plastic cleaner. I'm going to inspect with magnification to see what I can see there before I ever go with some plastic cleaner, I think. Yeah, it's really mysterious, that pitting. It could be the underneath of the paint rather than the actual surface. Let's just get a little bit of plastic cleaner. I'm just going to just gently move that around just to see what effect that has, and the answer is not a lot. So yeah, I think this would need you know, sanding down back to metal and repainting probably. So yeah, it's not the end of the world, it really isn't. So I've whipped the lid off there, and you can see the battery is definitely leaked. Around here we've got some corrosion up here. These traces here are very badly affected, just around the controller port here, and obviously that's the mouse port, isn't it? That needs swap, or is that the joystick port? I forget which one. I think the mouse is up here. Yeah, that's port 2. That's going to need swapping. I'll probably swap them both, just like I did on the board I looked at for Stephen. But we're going to need to plug these wires here, fix some traces. Around that gal there is pretty bad. Around here is not too bad. There is some greenness around here, but this is quite superficial compared to the previous 3 or 4 of these boards I've looked at. And again, the audio section back here, yeah, there's some crustiness to these caps here because these are probably leaked, or it might just be from the battery there. And green looking pins on the op-amp, but most of the stuff around there I'm going to be able to reflow, you know, I'll be able to, I could replace, but I'll probably just remove things, clean up pads and things, and refit things, and fit some brand new electrolytics. Obviously I'll have a full recap of this particular board, but that will be another video. So the nice thing is it's got a 2 meg sim there as well. That's nice. You can fit larger sims. It's all about just getting them double-sided effectively, you know, so they're in 2 banks. So I think on mine I've got an 8 meg sim actually, and it just happens to translate to 2 meg. There's like 4 on each side. And then just raising the camera up a bit, you can see the CPU card here, so we'll inspect that in a minute, and you can see the power switch here just taped onto the inside. And we've got a Seagate IDE hard disk here as well. So I think the next thing I'm going to do is start removing some of these things. We'll remove these screws, and all the screws are here. That's the other amazing thing. All the screws for the motherboard, all the screws for the case, apart from one for the back, but I can replace the ones for the back anyway. And this may have lost 2 screws. I don't know if it ever had 4 or whether they just fitted 2 in here, but yeah, we've got 2 screws there. So I'll get those out, remove this, we'll remove the CPU card, perhaps reconnect the power switch, and then I'll try and get the motherboard out. Yeah, so the only point of concern so far really is the top of the lid. You know, that's the only thing. This is in remarkable condition. Even the inside of the metalwork and stuff here is largely unaffected from like corrosion and stuff. And it's even got the plastic thing there. Katha's machine didn't have that, did it? We'll just disconnect the drive. I'm not sure what size that is. Is there any indications of... it's an ST3144. It might be 40 meg or something like that. I don't know. We'll have a look at that later. So I'm going to carefully see if I can just disconnect the CPU card here. It could be a bit difficult because obviously I'm hindered. It's got those little plastic clips as well. That's something else that's missing off my board. Yeah, it's clipped on. So I think what we're going to need to do here is get the board out, or get this drive bay out. I can't remember how this comes out now. I think you can unscrew it from the front, can't you? But you've got to take the fascia off. There we go. I managed to get that off okay. You can see that's in remarkable condition. That looks good as new. Alright, there's some furriness here, look, which is what you tend to get on these. But the caps haven't leaked, I don't think, there. They will need swapping out. I've got some caps on the way for this. Looking at the ROMs down here, I think we've got Kickstart 3, actually. So let's get the Zorro riser out. I'll remove these screws here. And then this should come off, and we can carefully pull this out. There we go. So again, that is looking in excellent condition. Oh, there's been some rework or something here, can you see that? Don't know what that is there. Could just be a bit of flux, I don't know. What is that? It's a resistor pack. Yeah, that resistor pack seems to have been swapped out or something at some point. The annoying thing is with the 4000, you can see the screw right under here. So in order to get the motherboard out, I am gonna have to take the front off, I think. it perhaps gives me an opportunity to show you how to get this fascia off, because I don't think I showed it. And that's bent there, can you see that? Just like it was on Cathers. Or are those supposed to be bent inwards? Yeah, maybe that's supposed to be like that. I don't know, Cathers was like that. I think I strained it. Maybe I shouldn't have done. Anyway, that's an interesting point. So if you're watching Cathers, see how that's bent? You might just need to bend it back a little bit. Yeah, you've got to squeeze these together. This is the blooming problem though, because how do you get to those ones down there? I am not sure. What you can do is just press them like that. You can see that one's out actually. Can you see it starting to separate here? So it's a case of trying to hold it like that and then go round and squeeze them all. You can see those two on that side are almost out now. And these of course go all the way along there. There's one down here, look. That one down there is going to be difficult to get to. You can get to the top side of it, but oh, did I break that off? No, I didn't. There's a screw in there loose. I've just seen a screw fall down there. I don't know where that came from. And there we go, no broken clips, despite the scary noise. Oh, here we go. This is the hole where these go through, so that is a mistake I made on Cathers as well. People are like, oh, there's a hole to feed them through, and I was like feeding them through around here. So yeah, that is the hole. So yeah, that's just a bit of dirt. It's not a chip or anything. I think the front is in really good condition actually. I'm not going to bother retrobrighting that. I guess it's useful stripping it down to this level anyway, because we can take the drive out and service the drive now, can't we? And then I think this just slides out like that. We can disconnect these cables, I think. Let's just remove those. Pull the IDE one off. I don't think anyone's been in this since new, if I'm honest. These cables, everything just looks like it's never ever been touched, including the fact that it's got Kickstart 3. Just slide that out. Strange how that was disconnected. Quite why someone would do that, I don't know. It's a little bit weird. I mean, obviously someone has been in here to have got that out. Anyway, that's back in place. I wonder if the power supply works. I hope it does. It's looking very dusty in there. We'll need to clean inside that. Anyway, I can now remove all of these screws. I'm using the flathead screwdriver here just to make sure I don't damage the tops of these screws, especially the corroded ones near the front. I just want to try and avoid tearing the heads up. That might not happen. Oh no, it's coming out, look. Super corroded, that one. Oh, well, one or two of those screws were really hard to get out, but yeah, you can see the board has certainly got a lot of corrosion there. I've not seen it quite as bad as that around this bit here, but then again, when I've got to them, they've often been cleaned up a little bit. Yeah, that plate there obviously is super corroded. Lots of dust and stuff up here as well as the corrosion. But in general, that's in not bad condition though, actually. Could be far worse. You can see the SIM sockets here are pretty green there. Okay, over the right hand side. So I might remove those SIM sockets, I think, fit some new ones on this before I sell this board. I would keep these as spares though. I'll clean these up, with vinegar, fiberglass pen, and then IPA, and they'll probably be alright. I might be able to swap some of these out onto mine, the ones where they don't clip in very well, because those SIM sockets are very good. Other than the bit of corrosion there, they're very good. There's not a lot of use to this. I don't think it's even had any fast RAM in it at any point in its life. I could be wrong, because if someone was going to nick the RAM out of this, they'd have taken this out of it as well, probably. Yeah, no issues on the underside other than that bit I pointed out near the RAM up there, fast RAM. Probably swap these out as well. You can see that's a bit bent over. Might not need to actually, because they are corroded. It's just bent, isn't it? It's just had a knock. Anyway, the next thing we can do now is get this plastic isolator sheet out. That's slipped up a little bit there. deal with this corrosion here, I'll just clean with some vinegar initially, and then use the fiberglass pen on these rusty bits here, and probably over there as well, just gently. Try not to rub off the zinc coating, but just deal with the corrosion little bits there and wipe around the inside of it. And I'll get my motherboard in, and we'll give it a try. I might just measure the voltages on here before I actually power the motherboard. Just using a bit of vinegar here initially. It might just help shift some of the dirt when I get the fiberglass pen under. You can see that is cleaning up nicely. Right, so we're pretty much there. I've just tilt you can see it is looking a lot cleaner. How I need to do this here. So yeah, forget what I'm saying. We aren't quite there yet. We've got this here. Yeah, there you go. So you can see this has all been cleaned down and wiped over with the WD-40 there as well. It's just a solvent. There's just a little bit of rust on here. I don't think you can see that. I'll perhaps zoom you. And just a little bit there. So I'm just going to wipe those and do the same thing. And perhaps here as well, actually, on there. So yeah, so it is quite minor there. I've just used the fiberglass pen. And there is not all of the corrosions come off there. There's still going to be a little bit bitty. But just wiping the tops of that with some WD-40. The main thing is just to try and get the little flakes of rust off and stop it from getting too much worse. You can see the rust comes off there with the wipe of the WD-40. Trying not to damage those, you know, the prints on the back there that tells you what all the different ports are, because those are all largely intact. There's a bit there as well. I might have to just remove that expansion cover to do that. So I did the exact same thing there with that. So yeah, all of the redness is not gone, but what we have done is just dealt with the majority of it and covered it in some solvent that will hopefully stop more rust. So I will take this power supply out, clean it up and refurbish it, you know, swap the caps, change the heatsink, compound, you know, and all that sort of stuff in another video. But right now I just want to just clean around here. I'm using WD-40 again here. There's nothing wrong with having a slight layer of protective solvent and oil on the inside of this. So I'm just giving it a quick vacuum here, you know, rub the brushes up and down there, just try and get the main dust out the back of that fan there, and out the vents at the back of the power supply as well. But we will go in there later. So the next thing to do is clean up this piece of plastic. You can see it's got some of the leakage here. So we'll just wipe that with some soapy water, get that back in and fit my motherboard. Now, solvents can interfere with certain plastics, but the kind of solvent that is WD-40 doesn't affect this type of plastic. I might just use a bit of IPA if that doesn't shift it. No, it's come off, look. Yeah, that electrolyte from the battery is just gone. And you can see more of it here, I think. So yeah, I'll spend 5 minutes just cleaning this. There we go, that's our plastic sheet cleaned up. Got to try and remember which way this goes round now, because I got this wrong when I did this one time. I think it goes this way, actually. Yeah, that's it. So all of the screw holes match up, as you can see here. So before I commit to installing my motherboard, I figure it might be an idea to test the power supply, because then I might get frustrated when I fitted my board in there and it doesn't work. So let's just test each of these connections here. We're on volts DC, switch it on. Bear in mind, these things always sound like a hovercraft. They're seriously really loud. There we go. So 5 volts is good. Thankfully no dust has come flying out of that. Well, none that I can see. Let's just carefully check the 12 volts. Yeah, 11.21, a little bit low, but that's typically what you expect on these. So I'm happy with that. Let's get the motherboard in. And there is another signal on there, there's -12. I'm not interested in that just now. And the tick signal, I think it comes out of there as well. It might be the yellow one, I'm not sure. Oh, that might be the +12 actually. I think the yellow one's probably +5 actually. So before I can get the motherboard in, I need to inspect the screws here and find the corroded ones. So far they're alright, there's just a few like that one there, can you see that? super corroded, that need cleaning up, that was super corroded. And some of these are quite hard to get out, that one's corroded as well. And then the other ones were good. Now the other thing I'll show you in a minute is stick a bit of oil on the threads before you actually screw them in. Certainly the ones that have been corroded. You just to help protect the thread of the screw and the hole on the case. That one's a bit corroded as well. And actually the thread on that one. So a majority of them, there are 3 that don't need doing, and there are 6 that do. So initially I'll use the wire brush on the head of the screw here. It's quite light superficial corrosion on most of these. It is just a little bit. And try and get into the middle as well. Moving around at different angles is what you need to do. Of course you could just replace these screws. There's nothing special about them really, other than the fact that they are the ones that it originally shipped with. It gets a bit more difficult trying to clean the underneath of the head here and where the threads are. And I've shown this technique before. Get some WD-40 on some paper towel like that, and then get your screw and screw it into the rag like this and go up and down a few times, and use my nail here to act as a guide for the thread. Unscrew it. Don't screw into your hand obviously. Yeah, you can see some of the dirt and stuff's come off there. And do the same thing again in a fresh bit of the paper towel. And we'll wipe the head with the WD-40 as well in a minute, just to make sure it's nice and clean. So yeah, just a bit of that really. I'll try and show you what it looks like now. Yeah, so there you go, you can see it's still a little bit of corrosion on there, but that's largely good enough to go back in. Look, it's not white and furry like it was. And a little bit of oil, as I say, just a drop of 3-in-1 oil on there before you screw it in will ensure it goes in and out without damaging the screw or the case. So all the screws have been cleaned up. Let's get the motherboard in. We need to get that port at the back in first. Sorry, you can't see from my arm there. Yeah, there we go. And you might be asking, why am I going with this board versus the one it came with? And the answer is nostalgia. Stephen sent me this board, and I've obviously invested a lot of time into this board. It's good as new really, apart from obviously the scary thing here, but it works, it's perfect, absolutely perfect. So why would I want to go with another board? I might change my mind when I build the other board, but I think I've got nostalgia for this now. So as I say, with the screws, I'm literally going to get a tiny bit of 3-in-1 like that. That's it, there's hardly anything there. I'm getting more on my fingers than on the screw. And then we'll carefully get the screw into position, push the board. I'm going to use the flat blade screwdriver here to avoid chewing the heads up. Just push the board while I screw that in. Yeah, I can feel it's a little bit tight, and this is what happened when they came out. They were a little bit tight. So that oil, there you go, it's nice and loose now. That oil will just assist. I don't want to go too tight, I just literally want it to be finger tight like that. That's 1 in, 8 more to go. So those all went in with ease actually. If you get stuck, you can see this one's a bit tight, the other ones went in really easy. Just do a little bit of forwards, backwards, and then it goes in really easy. I'll just use the flat blade here because I don't want to damage the thread. I don't want to damage the head of the top of the screw. Yeah, there's a bit of resistance there, see. You'll get to the point where it'll just go in and out really easy. But they're all in and they all look good actually. So I think the next thing to do is perhaps get the bridge here and the drive cleaned up perhaps. So I'll connect the Daughterboard up. I keep referring to this as a bridge. It is kind of bridging. You're bridging from the motherboard to Zorro slots. But nevertheless, its official name there is Daughterboard, Rev B. So again, this came from Stephen, the amazing Stephen Leary as well. So let's just try and align that. I've disconnected the power while I do this, just in case I was to accidentally, there we go, flip the power on. It's the last thing you want to do when you're working on a machine like this. And there's a few bits of dust on that. I can perhaps clean that a bit later. Anyway, I do know that works perfectly because I've been using that to test a number of different 4000s that have been on my channel. And I guess there's nothing to stop us getting this back on. I'm going to get this round the wrong way again now, aren't I? I can see it coming. Why is there no screw mount over there? Oh, yeah, the screw mount on the other side. The other thing we need to do is get this back on, because this provides one of the mounts for the bridge thing. What's that there? It's a bit of sticky stuff. Look, must have had a warranty seal or something over that at some point in the past. Yeah, it's not too bad. Again, there's just a little bit of corrosion on the bottom there, but you know what? It's so minor, I'm not going to worry about that. Anyway, now the interesting thing with this seemed to go on here differently, or it came off differently compared to the other one. It was like on the inside. I thought this went on the outside and hinged in or something. I don't know. So you might need to remove the Zorro thing again here now, actually, now I think about it. Unless I can slide it down like that. Yeah, no, it just goes like that. It does just go like that. When I did Cather's machine, I think I put that on the underside like that, pushing it forward, and actually it wants to go, they want to go over the actual PCB, those. And again, I've been adding a drip of oil to each one of these screws. But I mean, these are going in okay, these were not really corroded. When it gets to the point there, this is when I swap to the flat blade, just to make sure I don't tear the head of the screw up. Anyway, that's in. So I've covered lots of Amiga floppy drives on my channel before. I'll stick some links in the top right there. But we did have a quick look inside Cather's floppy drive, and I serviced that. So I will sort of fast forward through this stuff, and again I'll post a link down to Cather's, that particular video down below. I think it was part 3 when we looked at the floppy drive, if you want to see more information. So this one's an FB357A. It's high density, I think. Yeah, you can tell that because you can see we've got a switch here, this black thing here, switches, and switches on that side. So yeah, it's high density. And Dow Corning Molykote EM3L. And we'll try and get a little bit onto that rail down there. I can always go back inside this if it's not right. I'm not even going to test it after I've done this. I'm just going to go reassemble it. So clean the bottom head, hear it squeak. And we'll try and do the top head. This one's harder. Can't press as hard on this. That should do. Yeah, you can see there was a bit of dust and fluff in there. And a drip of deoxit gold onto these switches here. If you get it right on the top, it will seep right inside, and then you can then just push up and down like this. I'll clean the button up now and get it back together, but you've seen how it came to pieces. Putting it back together is just the same in reverse. There is, however, just a little bit of dust on there. I know, can you see it? Yeah, it's pretty tidy there. You may want to consider swapping these capacitors here if you've got problems with it. The red stripe here went towards the power, I remember that. Plug that in, move the power switch out of the way, then this should just, and it should slide into that little metal thing on the main part of the case there, I think. Yeah, I think that's it, actually. So we just need the 2 screws on the front. So the 2 for this were countersunk. And that's 2. Yeah, I'm going to flip that cable around because the pin 1 marking is not going to pin 1. I connected it up and the LED was on all the time. That's a clue, it's the wrong way around. Just using a bit of IPA here to get the black marks and things off the fascia here. Could wash it in the sink. See if that one there will come off. Yeah, there we go, it's gone. And there's a big one down here. Might need to get some plastic cleaner onto this. So after 20 minutes with some soap, water, IPA and plastics, you can see that's come out pretty good. There's a couple of marks like this here that, yeah, you can just about see it, but that has come out excellent, I think. So let's get the front panel back on. We'll feed these things. Why has that got an LED in it there? Oh, that's come out of there. It must just sit in there. Yeah, they just sit in there. Perhaps held in with glue or something originally. That one's stiff, that one's not so stiff. Anyway, it's alright. Let's feed these three connectors back through here again. Was it through there? Yeah, it was through there. Now, I need to try and get these the right way around now, don't I? So one of the reds and the black is the keyboard lock, I think. Is that keyboard lock? Is that what it is? Yeah, I think it is. And then we've got black and white, which is power, and red and black, which is hard disk. So I've just tested the LEDs and they are working correctly. So we'll just pull this into position here and just carefully clip it back on. That's it. So yeah, for the lid, I think to get it looking back to almost factory, I'd need to get it resprayed. It's pretty bad. So is that looking better? I don't know. It is super scratched up, isn't it? So really I would need to respray it. Anyway, let's just try and clean this side here. So you can see I pulled a piece of Velcro off here and there's some sticky stuff here and there's some horrible marks, but hopefully the sides will come out better than the top. So these sticky points here, I found WD-40 is the best thing. With it being a solvent, it literally dissolves that rubbery glue there. I've tried everything. I've been at this for about half an hour trying to clean this, and then as soon as I got a bit of WD-40 on, it's started to clean up really, really easily. Let's see if I can get that one off. Yeah, that's looking a lot better. So turning my attention to the underneath of this, you can see there's a little bit of corrosion, quite a lot down the bottom. I'll show you in a minute. On here, it's quite superficial in places, but there is a little bit of rust just there, look. So I use the wire brush to free the big bits of rust up, and then we'll just use the fiberglass pen on the small bits. So I have literally spent hours and hours cleaning this. I've used IPA, made some difference. I've used T-cut, tiny bit of difference. Plastex, again, made a tiny bit of difference. Can you see all this pit in here? This was all over it. All these little dots, they were all over the whole thing. Bicarb of soda seems to be the most effective thing with this. I think it's like dirt that's ingrained into the top of the paint. So despite using those other things there that didn't really seem to solve it, I started, now you can see how bad this is here. It was like that over the whole lot. You can see the area done here. Can you see how much better it is? There's still some of those little pit things here, look. And some of them may well be pits rather than imperfections where, you know, you've got contamination on the surface there, but yeah, you can see actually this side is much better than the other side. So the bicarb soda is working. To me, that is just incredible. I know it looks really, really scratched here, and it is. There's lots of really bad scratches, but you know what? It looks 1,000 times better than it did before. I've tried a lot of different things on this. Honestly, it's a bit dirty at the moment because it's got the sodium bicarbonate on here. So I'm going to wash this off now and then do the sides. But yeah, you might not be able to tell. The pitting, you can still see little bits of it here, you know, these little dots. They were absolutely over the whole thing, spaced apart by about half a millimetre or a millimetre across the whole thing, and nothing was bringing them off. It just looked terrible, especially when combined with the scratches. I'm going to try baking soda up here. You can see, you know, marks and things. Nothing has brought these off so far. And we'll do this side as well, because again, that dirt is not coming off. So, lots of progress. I'm going to clean that PCB up in a bit. Can you see it looks a bit dirty on top? Anyway, can you see we've got the slots at the back here? I got just a set of these cheap covers here for the back. Now, the next problem I had is the screws. All the screws in the case were here, apart from these ones. Now, you'd think those would be a similar size, if not identical, to some of the other screws around the system here, but they're not. Those, it took me a few attempts to get the size just right. They're actually M3.5 screws, and I think it might be the same on the A2000. So if you're missing screws to hold the expansion slot covers, just get yourself some M3.5 screws. I think I was limited on the length, you know, because the length is obviously key as well. I think I went with like 8mm or something, but they probably need 6 or 4 or something. So they, you know, they protrude a little bit on the back. I can show you that when we turn it around in a minute, but they don't protrude by very much, so it's not a big deal. So the IDE, you can see in the top slot here, I've mounted a compact flash adapter so that I can get my compact flash card in and out the back there. It's a nice easy way of doing that without having to go inside the blooming thing again to change that over. Or, you know, it's not just a case of changing it over, it's taking it to the PC so that I can copy files over and then, you know, plug it in here and I'm away, kind of thing. In terms of the memory, you can see I've put the original 2 meg SIM that came off the board that was originally in here. So this is what would have originally shipped with this. And you might think, well, why? Why would you do that other than to test it, perhaps? And it's about the height of these. Can you see these are all in profile now? This is the same height as these 4 meg ones, which is key when it comes to this bottom Zorro slot here. Here's the 8 meg SIM that I was using. You know, they've got to be double-sided, and it's that much extra in height. So yeah, it was just standing out a little bit here, which probably or possibly could have interfered with a you know, a Zorro card going in that slot there. So I've got the Kickstart 3.9 that you saw me using in the previous video when we built the A3640 here. So I'm going to get this in next. We'll fit my 040 and give it a try. So I just need to just tilt it down and around here. It's not the easiest thing to get in and out, I have to admit, just because of the way that this metal is here. And then you've got to somehow try and get it aligned on the slot. I can't even see the blooming slot. There we go, I think that's it. Is it? Yeah, there we go. So that is now on. Now the one thing I'd recommend you do for future is, you can see I've got an extra slot here for the top, you know, so I've pulled this out because we've got that compact flash adapter. Stick it inside any SD bag, one that's non-conductive, and any other parts from within the case that you've removed. So I've got these from the older board here, and these are the standoffs that sit just underneath where the CPU accelerator goes on either side to give it a bit of support. I'm not going to use those. I don't think they're really needed at the moment, but I've also got another card that you will see in a future video that I'm going to fit inside this machine. So rather than just lose those, and these interfere with it considerably, rather than lose those, we'll stick them all in here, and I'm going to tell you what we'll do, is just turn that around so that it's not up the top here, that bit, and then we'll seal this up. And all I'm doing this for is to protect it moving forward in terms of, you know, making it complete. So when I expire and this machine gets sold on, someone has got everything they need. So it will be 100%. So there's the odd bit of dust on here. This has been sat around for a while actually, because I've been working on numerous other systems. Can you see? Got some keys. If you saw the Cathers repair series there, you'll know that I went looking through my spare key collection. And don't worry, I don't collect keys. It's just some keys I had spare. And I tried them on Cathers' machine and I found a set. So I gave Cathers one of those keys. Now, at the time I was like, well, should I do that? Because you know what's going to happen. I'll get one day and then I'll only have one key. And that's exactly what has happened. And I can show you which key it is, because they had a unique code, and the code dictated the mechanism here, you know, how this was arranged, the thing here. So yeah, this one's 121, and that fits and works perfectly. If I put that in, and I've tested it, you can see it works really well, and it will lock or unlock the keyboard, so the keyboard stops working, or, you know, it's re-enabled when you switch it the other way. So looking at the arrangement there, the length of the notch on the end and the little 4 slices angles around here, I literally got my file filed a blank. I had one that was unused. It was like just blank, and it had quite a long piece here. I filed that down to make it a small little thing on the end, and then I filed diagonal across there and then diagonal across there, just the same way that one is configured, and that works. So I've made myself a spare key as well. I've got a proper set, so that's worked out quite well. So in a future video we'll go into the power supply, I'll recap it. I may even swap the fan for a quieter fan, because as you'll hear when we power this on in a sec, the fan is really loud, just like it was on Cather's machine. And of course with the IDE here, I've had to remove the whole Daughterboard here, the Zorro bridge, and feed the IDE right through the gap there. So there's flexibility, it will move a little bit, you can see that. Yeah, it's just a little bit squishy, I don't like it. In particular this, can you see I mounted this back on with this clear piece of plastic here, and because of this cable coming here, it means it just pushes it a bit. I mean, if I put another screw there, that would hold in place perfectly, but it's important to have that there, I think, that piece of plastic, because any of these power connectors, that one's not long enough, but any that could short onto here and stuff. Anyway, and another point to consider here, you can see, I've used this adapter here to reach this right round. I needed to extend it like that. But this could short, you've got like a 3-pin connector down here for CD audio, to mix audio. And if that went down there, that could short, and it could short onto jumpers and things. Now, I was casting my mind back, and I remembered you used to be able to get, in fact, many devices came with them on. It's like a rubber cap, a bit like you got on VGA connectors when they're new. It's like a rubber silicon thing that just slides over there. If anybody knows what those are called and where you get them from, please let me know, because I'd like to buy a few for this. Obviously one for the bay over here, because I've got one there floating, in fact 2 or 3 floating around over there, and this one here. But you could put a piece of tape over that or something. I might just do that before I reassemble this, because I just don't want to risk that shorting onto anything in here. And of course this is a little bit tight here as well, but yeah, there's all sorts of ways you could do something similar to what I've done, make it slightly tidier perhaps. And previously we fitted a Rev 11 Super Buster there as well, so when I eventually get some Zorro 3 cards, we should have some better performance and stuff, and less issues. So you can see the front came out super clean. If I switch this on, just keep your eye on the hard disk, there you go, flashing away there, so it's booting okay. And there we go, all booted up. So we've got our 16 meg of RAM, the date and time is correct, the mouse is working, everything's working, and obviously we've got our 040. So I'm very pleased. This machine has been a long time in the building, if you think about it really. It started back in spring last year when Stephen Leary provided the his 2 A4000 motherboards. One that he let me keep, and I fixed the other one, sent that back to him. And then obviously I had to source my own RAM. I've upgraded the Super Buster to this board. It had a full recap as part of the original repair series there. And then Stephen donated the empty A3660 board here to me, the one that Chucky designed, and then we built this in a previous video. Got all the parts from a website in Switzerland. That's on the review, I'll stick the link to that up there. Yeah, so I'm pleased to be the proud owner of an Amiga 4000. This was like the pinnacle of the Amiga range, really. There was nothing better than this, other than maybe the Tower. Some people would argue and say that the 3000 was a better machine. A lot of people have got a lot of love for the Amiga 3000. For me, the A3000 is a little bit like the CD-TV. It's kind of like an optional thing. It made sense in the timeline. After the 2000, the 3000 was way better. It provided much faster throughput. Obviously you had the 030 25 megahertz on there. You had lots of room for RAM and stuff. You had lots of expandability. You had the same CPU slot that the 4000 uses down there. And you had built-in SCSI and a scan doubler. So the 3000 is really nice in lots of respects. But you can do, with upgrades and things, you could turn a 4000 into something that's better than a 3000. It's got AGA chipset and stuff on there anyway. But the 3000 just looks cool as well. That's one of the things that makes the 3000 sought after. I won't ever go higher than this in terms of an Amiga. This is the most powerful Amiga you'll see on my channel. The later CPU upgrades you could get that brought in the Power PC architecture, it doesn't interest me at all. It's a step away from compatibility. Yeah, alright, there was emulation and stuff that would run on that, and it ran so blooming fast, you'd probably get away with it and stuff, and You know, there's probably solutions and software and stuff to get things compatibility-wise working quite well with a PowerPC architecture, but for me, it isn't something that interests me. If someone wanted to donate one, I'd probably be like, no thanks. I think my nostalgia kind of ends at the 68060, really, when it comes to the Amiga. So you saw me briefly service this before. If I get a disc in there, we'll try and format that, just make sure that's working. So I've got a HD Dyson disc there. Yeah, you can see the disc there. I previously formatted it just before, but we'll do it again. It says their capacity 1 meg. Hang on a minute, that isn't right. Yeah, let's just do a format on it. Continue. And after what felt like an absolute eternity, it formatted the disc there. Hang on a minute, wait for it to appear again. And if we go into it, yeah, there you go. You can see we've got 1.8 meg free. That is amazing capacity for a floppy disk. Of course, you've got similar capacities on the PC there. Microsoft started formatting them to like 2 meg, didn't they, or 2.1 meg or something. It's ridiculous. You know, they just changed the number of sectors per track and stuff. And you could just squeeze a bit more in if you had a good quality media. And I guess that might be a key thing here. You might need to make sure you're using good quality discs with the HD drive on a 4000, but yeah, that's working. And I have copied things to and from it and stuff, tested it for reliability. It seems okay, so cleaning of that drive worked well. So I'll get the lid back on in a second and just give it a bit of a wipe down, because as I say, it's been a number of weeks I've been working on this. It's been sat around. In the meantime, it's got bits of dust and stuff on it after I had cleaned it before. You may have seen the message at the beginning of this video in the memory of Albert's mother, and I think it's worth me just talking a little bit briefly about Albert, because Albert was a key person in you know, the time when I was growing up. When I was like, I don't know, 19, 20, 21-ish, when I was in the trade, I met a gentleman called Albert Mather, and he came in as a customer to the company I worked at. This is just after I took the business over, actually. I might have been about 22 or so at the time. He bought his computer in. It was an ICL. Anyone remember those? I think it was an ICL 386. And he was getting on then. He was just turning 60, I think. I think he just retired. He was about 60. He couldn't get this computer working. It wasn't doing anything at all. It was just giving a load of beeps. And I took it to the bench. He left it with me, and I had a look at it. And all it was, he'd been messing with the jumpers, and he'd messed the jumpers up. So I set the jumpers back to how it should have been configured, and of course it was working. And I rang him to let him know. And he's like, you know, how much is it? I think he was a bit concerned. It was going to cost him a lot of money. And I was like, well, just an inspection fee, which I think back then was like £12.50. I can't charge any more for that. It's, you know, it's taken me half an hour just to inspect it. I've cleaned it up a bit. I even cleaned his floppy drive for him. And from there, we hit it off. He just became a really good friend. He used to come round to my house a bit. I went to his house quite a bit in the evenings. It was a bit of an unusual situation, because, like I say, I was around, I don't know, 20-ish. And he was in his 60s. So there was a huge age mismatch there. And I would go to his bedroom, but beside in his bedroom, and I'd sit on his bed. He would sit on his computer chair, and he'd boot his PC up. And because he'd retired, he had a more disposable income. So he would always buy new upgrades and things all the time, and it became like a bit of a race between us. I was in the trade, so I had you know, I lived at home with my parents at the time. I had some disposable income, more than I have now perhaps, so I would always have the very latest CPU. As soon as a new CPU came out, Intel, I'd be onto the latest one with a new motherboard and the latest graphics card, and I'd be changing, you know, from ISA to VESA local bus to PCI, and there was like this race between us. He would you know, be upgrading his, and I'd be upgrading mine. He would always be a step ahead of me. Every time I went round to his house, he'd be like, look what I've got this new Iliama monitor, and you know, it's got a really high clarity, and it's nice and sharp. And the bottom line is that I spent a lot of time around at Albert's house, and we spent a lot of time going out to computer shows. He would take me to the Norbrecht Castle there, the computer show there, and radio rallies. He'd come and pick me up and stuff, and you know, we just spent a lot of time together on all this PC stuff. And he knew a lot of people. He had a lot of friends who had lots of computer stuff, not just Amigas but PCs as well. He was, you know, he was into PCs and Amigas. So like, he was the first, he had the first A4000 I'd got my hands onto, kind of thing. And I experienced all the different problems he had with that in terms of trying different Zorro cards and things. And He also knew people had bulletin board access, so he would always have the latest games. He'd be able to download copies of the very, very latest releases, and he had a massive selection of software for the Amiga. So any game I could think of, I'd say, "Oh, you've not got such a thing, have you?" He'd go, "Yeah, I've got that," and he'd do me a copy. He'd get his X copy, and he'd use his multiple drives, and he'd copy, you know, from one disk to another, and I had a copy of the latest game, which yeah, I feel bad about now, but it was fantastic at the time being able to get all these games. And he was like a key person in the community that just knew everybody. He was like a centre pillar of this retro, it wasn't retro back then, obviously, you know, the Amiga community back in the 90s there, the early to mid 90s I think it was. And I went round to Albert's house one day, and he had an A4000. That was the first A4000 I saw as well. So not only did I see my first 2000 at his house, his 4000 as well. I think he skipped the 3000, I'm not sure. But yeah, I was drooling over that 4000, and I distinctly remember him showing me Pinball Illusions, and I was like, "Oh, that's fantastic, can I have a copy?" He went, "Well, it's AGA." I was like, "What's AGA?" He went, "Well, that's the new graphics chipset on these 4000, and then he then proceeded to take it apart and let me have a fettle, you know, a tinker around and have a look at exactly what was going on in these new amazing A4000s versus the old 16-bit, you know, A2000s. Anyway, when I eventually moved out and moved areas and things, I lost touch with Albert. I did meet him once or twice at Scan Computers in Bolton. I would be standing in the queue, and then suddenly I felt a tap on my shoulder, and lo and behold, Albert was there, and I was like, "Oh, how are you?" You know, catching up and stuff. Anyway, I'm sorry this story is going a long time. The bottom line is I have very fond memories of Albert. He was a key person in, like say, in my career as well. I just made so many contacts from him, and he brought so much business into the company. And my skill set and stuff expanded in part because of Albert. He was a real motivational factor in my career and my life. And obviously I was very sad to hear he died. I just lost track, and you know, it's just one of these things. He got quite old. But anyway, yeah, let's go out on a positive. He was a fantastic guy. He was loved by everybody who knew him, and he did a lot of positive stuff with his life. He was an engineer, and he could make absolutely anything. He could fabricate anything. He had so many skills. Anyway, let's switch that off now and get the lid on, and I'll show you what it looks like. I straightened this out on Cather's case. I'm like, "Oh look, some morons bent that. That's supposed to be bent." And the reason I know that is because mine here was bent exactly the same angle. I'm like, I think I've dropped a bit of the clanger there. So yeah, Cathers, if you're watching this, you might want to bend that back to approximately that angle. I'll give you a better angle from there, just so you can see it does need to be bent inwards a little bit, like that, by about, I don't know, 3 mil. Yeah, don't let Gadget near your A4000, they'll be bending it. There we go, let's just put this back on. So hopefully you can start to see already how much better that case is. And there we go, you can see it looks absolutely fantastic. Yeah, there's some scratches, you know, you can see we've got a really big scratch here. There's a couple of bits where the paint's thinned a little bit and scratches all around it. But you know what, compared to how that looked, it has come out leaps and bounds. It is 1,000 times better than I thought I would get it, to be honest. Up close you can still see these little marks, so you can still see them a tiny little bit here, but they were very, very noticeable, and they were over the whole thing. And there's a quick look at the back of it. I've not got the screws in at the moment, but I've got 2. I've changed the screws for this actually. It did have the original ones, or one of them I think. There was one missing, that's the only other screw that was missing. But these are just like, I don't know, M2 I think, or something like that. So you can see the interesting thing is I had a sticker on here, this NICAD, so yeah, that was the thing that sealed the fate on a lot of these, not just the capacitors. And it had the 130 meg hard disk installed. I'm going to leave that there, it's a piece of the history, and it's obviously got the original serial number and stuff there. And it's come out okay, you know, there's no real issues there on the back. You can see that these slots have covered up nicely. And you can see there, that's what I meant about the length. Can you see they're perhaps just a little bit too long? They should be half as long as that. So if you're going to source M3.5 bolts, try and get like 4 or 6 millimeter length. I think these might be 8. I think that's what I ended up being able to find. I couldn't find any others. But yeah, that just looks amazing from the front now. So bicarb of soda is what made all this. I think it was mouse poo, if I'm completely honest. I had a couple of thumbnails we were going to use for this video. People were kidding along and saying you should use some clickbait titles because you get more hits. So I'll show you them anyway. One of my friends, Stu Roro, suggested a clickbait title for this, and I didn't go with that. You know what I'm like, I can't go with clickbait, but I'll stick a couple of the funny things, the one he suggested here, and then I'll stick the other two following that. But yeah, the mouse poo, it fits. This, I'm sure this had been pooed on by mice, seriously, because that's what it looked like. I've seen things that have been stored in a barn or something before where mice and rats and bats and birds have, you know, done their stuff on it, and that's exactly what it seemed to look like, the little dots and things. It wasn't something that had been rubbing on it, because they were separated by a certain distance, and that's what you tend to get with like insects, and could have been insect excrement or something, but I'll tell you what, it took ages to clean, ages and ages. It's never taken so long to clean anything, but yeah, I am very, very happy with the end results. So I do hope you found the video interesting. If you'd like to support the channel, please see the Ko-fi and Patreon links down below. So we'll visit this again very soon. I might even do a live stream where we play some games on this or something at some point soon. I think my wife's going to be travelling away in, I don't know, a month or something, so that'll give me an opportunity to do some live streams that week. Yeah, so I hope you enjoyed the video. Thanks for watching. I'll catch you in the next video.